In the heart of Paris, hundreds of migrants are living in two makeshift camps after crossing the Mediterranean on the notorious trafficking boats. But for many of them, the French capital is just a stop-off point. From there, they hope to slip into a train to the port town of Calais and then cross to the English Channel to Britain by stowing away on trucks. Well, one Parisian, he told us about the encampments themselves.
It looks like you are not in France and you are not in a country of human rights. Most of the organizations who are helping them are Muslim organizations, but nothing is done by the government or the mayor of Paris. French government is okay to bomb these countries, but when these people come to our countries, nobody wants to take care of them. And this is why these people have understood that France is not the country of the human rights for them, and maybe going to UK or Sweden is better for them.
But the journey across the Channel has its own risks, such as being run over or suffocating on lorries. There are around 2,000 illegal immigrants living rough around Calais, setting up tents on an old dumping ground with no water or electricity. Well, let's cross live now to independent political analyst Gearóid Ó Colmáin. Hello to you, sir. Thank you for joining us on this one. Really, what we want to know is how come that despite all the EU measures, illegal immigrants keep risking their lives to come to Europe?
They have no choice. They have no choice but to risk their lives to come to Europe. We should contextualize this problem. It's never been contextualized by the media. Let's take an example of a country that is now becoming a country of emigration rather than immigration. And that's Libya, for example. Before the so-called revolution in Libya in 2011, which was orchestrated by the United States and its allies, Libya was the richest country in Africa. It had a very generous welfare system. It had practically free lodging for most of the population. It was a country that was progressing, that was number 50 on the Human Development Index. It had a huge project for African unification, for the creation of an African central bank, for the creation of an African monetary fund, an African satellite. It had a very progressive social and geopolitical policy in Africa. That country was overrun and destroyed by terrorist gangs financed by Saudi Arabia and Qatar and supported militarily with special forces from France, Britain, the United States and Israel.
So you're blaming European intervention?
Now you have absolute chaos in Libya right now. So now that's only one state, of course. You could talk about the Ivory Coast, which was destabilized from 2002 to the coup d'etat in 2011 by the French military, who overthrew the elected president of that country, elected according to the laws of that country. That country was destroyed. And so you have desperation right throughout the African continent, from the west all the ways to the Horn of Africa. And so you have thousands of people who are fleeing poverty that has been imposed by Western financial institutions such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, who are keeping unpopular dictators in place in those countries to serve Western corporate interests at the expense of their population. These people are not coming here to benefit from our system. They're coming here because the people who rule them in their countries also rule us here. And they're coming here because they want to get their money back, because they've been robbed by NATO, they've been robbed by the Western corporations. And these corporations are based in Paris and London and Berlin and all the top capitals of the world. So these people are not coming to benefit from our system. They're coming here because we force them. They're effectively fleeing Western policy towards Africa. And that is the origin of this crisis, and it will not be resolved unless that is recognized and that becomes more known. And it won't be resolved until the point is reached where the people of Africa are capable of overthrowing this tyrannical system that has been imposed on them by the Western power elite, by the Western corporations and their governments. And that is
That's at the
broader
core of the
picture, if you like,
immigration problem.
that explains this crisis.
I understand. But I also want to talk about people's attitudes in Britain, for example, against these immigrants. Because, say, for example, a columnist in the major British tabloid newspaper, The Sun, she's a controversial one, to put it modestly, she described the migrants as cockroaches. Now, what I want to know is how representative is that of the attitudes towards migrants across Europe? So we know the cause, you've told us that, but what's this attitude? Can you tell us more?
Well, you're seeing a rise of the far right in all European countries, and the far right is a symptom of capitalism in crisis. When capitalism is in crisis, it turns to extremism to impose its dictate upon the people, and the far right is an expression of that. And the far right are promoting an immigration agenda, get the immigrants out and so on. They never explain that immigration, of course, is a problem. It's a problem for the immigrants. They don't want to come here at all. They much prefer to stay at home and have a nice life. They're forced to come. But of course, so they recite these simple stories to the people in order to divide communities, because the immigrants they're fleeing the same bankers and bosses as the English working class, as the French working class, the Irish working class. So they're using the ruling elite are essentially using racism and inciting racism in order to divide and rule their own people and to maintain their grip on power throughout, especially throughout Africa. So racism is really a symptom of a society that is in crisis, and Western society is in deep crisis. The ruling class want immigration, but they want to keep communities divided. They want immigration because it actually helps to keep the labor force down. It makes labor cheaper. So cheap labor is the object of the ruling class. But they also want to incite racism. They want to divide black and white people and Arabs and blacks and so on, to keep everybody divided, so that they don't actually realize the true causes of their misery, the true causes of their social problems.
Thank you,
and
sir.
in
We're
a
out of time,
multicultural
but we
society
really
like Britain and
appreciate your
France,
thoughts.
that is imperative from the point of view of the ruling class.
Thank you very much indeed. Really enjoyed listening to you. Very interesting indeed. That's Gearóid Ó Colmáin, independent political analyst in Paris. Thank you, sir.